Please welcome our next speaker, Mike Hastings, a principal consultant. Today he will be presenting Things I Wish I Knew When I Did Not Know What I Should Know. Please stick around after Mike's session for a live Q&A.
Hi, my name's Mike Hastings, and I'm going to present some things that I wish I had known when I was just starting out with Dynamics, specifically the CE platform. This is also going to cover some Power Platform type things, since Dataverse and Power Platform CE all kind of cross over a little bit. I do want to thank DynamicsCon 2021 for having me. This is my first presentation to the CRM community, the CE community. I will point out that there is going to be a chat function, so you can send questions or comments during presentation or save them for after, and I'll have some time at the end for you to ask me questions. I'll do my best to answer them for you. So again, my name is Mike Hastings. I've been in the Dynamics CE, Dynamics CRM, Power Platform universe since early 2014. So I'm at about 7 years here, ranging from version CRM 4.0 all the way to the current, whatever name you want to give it. So in addition to that, I started out as a functional consultant. I've worked at end users and as a functional consultant, technical consultant. I think I've implemented every single module except for PSA. So I've been kind of all over the place and figured, hey, why not start sharing my knowledge with the community? So with that, I'll jump right in here to my presentation. So I titled my session "Things I Wish I Knew," because man, aren't there a lot of things that we all wish we knew? You know, this is going to be pretty kind of all over the place in terms of skill set. I would say my target audience is more end user, newish, functional or technical consultant. I'll kind of try to point those things out a little bit here and there. And if I didn't start off great already, I forgot to mention I am a principal consultant at Blue Horseshoe Solutions. Don't want to get a slap in the face for forgetting that part afterwards. And despite the picture, I am not that intense of a person. So I'm going to start out by talking about the Power Platform Admin Center a little bit. This is where you can see all of your CRM, CE, Power Platform environments. And I know you're going to see a lot of pictures of my own organization, so forgive the blued out boxes over everything. I promise I just don't want you to see what our websites are. So the first area I'm going to point out is that a lot of customers or friends at former workplaces don't seem to realize is out there that, I think it's very beneficial. I think all of these things are very beneficial on a certain level to everyone. But there is a Dataverse analytics dashboard that Microsoft has made available in the Power Platform Admin Center. The reason I think this is very important to be aware of is because you can monitor your APIs. There are and are rolling out API limitations. I don't know when those start for everyone, if it's at the end of current contract or if it's just as of now. But it's definitely something you want to keep an eye on. And you can see in my screenshots under Analytics and Dataverse, I'm on the API call statistics tab. And then I selected my organization and the time frame I want to check for, because you do have limitations based on a rolling 24 hours. So it's just something to keep in mind if you start running into errors or issues regarding the API caps limits. Worst case scenario, you just have to rewrite some stuff, maybe a plugin, maybe a workflow, maybe a flow here and there, and or consider the Microsoft add-on capacity option. And then over on the left, this is actually an image of what's down a little bit further on the page. This would tell you which kind of APIs you are actually hitting the most. I know it looks kind of like what is that number? Most of these refer to like an object type code, which I'll actually talk about a little bit later. So it can give you pretty decent granularity into, hey, what's happening the most in my system that maybe I should be taking a look at. So my next area in the Power Platform admin, if you go under the Power Automate section, you can actually see which of your Power Automate flows are running the most. This isn't a perfect science about your API limits and usages, but it's just a lot of benefit to actually have an eye on what's going on. And that's what this kind of first section is about. Jumping into my next area, this is one that has been more necessary to track probably since I started doing CRM, at least if you're cloud-based. On the resource section, you can go to capacity and you can see what kind of data storage you're looking at, what's being used. You can see this one is 58 of 80 gigabytes, and then it'll divide up into database, file size, log size. Files are your attachments, most likely. I know there's other things that could be in there, but that's at least my experience. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. And then database hits your data. So as you can see, this would be by environment, showing me what each one's taking up. You can actually drill into these, and it will give you a better idea of what each environment is using. You can see from my screenshot, this organization uses just under 7 gigabytes of storage, and the highest utilized table is activity pointer base. So there's a little bit of homework you have to do with these if you don't know what the table names are, but it's very beneficial if you're trying to clean up space, or, hey, my dev environment is starting to get a little heavy. What should I look at removing? So just to kind of keep your eyes open to it, because there are limitations to the system if you're over allocated with your storage. One of those is you can't revert or spin up new environments. Last one for this kind of admin center section I want to point out, the Powerapp Portal, formerly Dynamics Portal, formerly ADX Studio. You can get to that admin center through the same Power Platform admin. You can see the image on the left is kind of your map to it. And then when you open it, there's kind of 3 areas that I'd like to point out real quick. Restart, I've used this in the past when it just seems to not want to clear my cache for me when I'm attempting to do that while making a portal. You can do a field service add-on for your portal, and that's done right in here. I've actually done a few of these in the last 6 months to a year, so it's becoming more effective of a tool to use. And the last one I'm going to point out, the Diagnostic Logging. If you have an Azure subscription, you are able to put a sort of connection string in here. And then anytime you go into your portal and experience an error, you can go back to Azure and see, hey, this is more in-depth what's going on, because you'll typically get a very generic error and you're not really going to be 100% sure what's kind of going on there. So it's a nice tool to have in the tool belt. All right, my next section is going to be to cover a few slides on Advanced Find. If you don't know what Advanced Find is, it is an awesome tool for anybody who's using the user interface to kind of find their data. First thing, if you don't know what it is, probably don't know where it is. In the top right of your screen, there's going to be a little filter image, and then it'll pop open a window that looks kind of like the below. Big thing I've noticed with people who don't know what Advanced Find is as soon as they kind of start feeling around and getting the hang of it, they love it. So, you may not have every table on your user interface that you can grab. So it's a good place to go look for anything like that. Or maybe you don't like the filters of your current views, and maybe like on my example, if you want to see accounts that are created on or before the end of 2020, you can add that filter in there and then search for it. And it's not doing anything to your actual system. It's just a temporary query for yourself. You can query parent data up. You can, in some respects, you can go down and get some child filters, but not the data. Won't work that way. Just a good tool to be aware of and to familiarize yourself with, especially at the end user level. And then I did say it's a temporary view, but if you really love the view that you created, you can actually save it and share it if you wanted to. Down in the right, I have a screenshot of, if you were to try to update the columns or add sorting, something like that. And then up in the top left, I have an image to kind of show, hey, this is what that would look like. There's actually a button that you can hit, and let me jump back one page, a saved views button. So if you have a view saved, go into save views, you'll see this. You can pick your view, and from there you can hit share, and it'll let you pick whoever you want to share this thing with. I find myself doing that a lot with the marketing side of things. Somebody wants a list of all these people who have done X, Y, and Z. Well, we're going to reuse this. So can you save it for us? Okay. And my last touch point on Advanced Find from a developer standpoint, it's nice to know that you can come in here and get your fetch XML. It's literally right here on the home ribbon of the Advanced Find. Then, hey, right down here, you have your exact fetch XML. And for those of you who aren't familiar with fetch XML, it's a Microsoft version of a query language. It's very helpful, this part of it, when for me, for plugins or for JavaScript and some other areas, when I just can't get the filter right in the Advanced Find, I can go in and add my own items to it. So after Advanced Find, I'm going to talk about solutions a little bit. And I do apologize. I am using the quote unquote classic view for my screenshots. So hopefully I don't confuse anyone. First thing to point out that I've heard complaints about in the past that, maybe a newer consultant or a newer system admin, somebody who just kind of got thrown into the role. Why do my fields all say new _? Because you're not making your new fields in a solution. Solutions are system admin, customizer type task. So, your general users, they don't really need to know much about this, but you definitely are going to want to set up a publisher if you haven't, and make your own prefix. It just looks nicer, really. There's other reasons behind it, but it's something to keep in mind. Next, I'll touch on dependencies a little bit, and you can see here I'm actually looking at plugins, plugin assembly, and then there's the different plugins that this one has. This one's not custom. I didn't create this one, nor did anyone that I work with. This was from a solution we imported. So really the dependency thing here is, hey, if I wanted to delete a field, or if I wanted to delete plugin, which I know I said manage, but there's some limitations there too. Anyways, if I were to highlight on my item and click show dependencies, I would see something down here that says, hey, this is where it's being used. You can't delete this item up top without clearing up this dependency. I've seen questions in community forums from customers, from peers. Hey, I'm getting this error when I'm trying to delete something, a field, an entity that was created by mistake. You got to clear up any dependencies you have before you can really remove that. And that's just one place to go look for it. It is available to some degree in the new user interface. Since I've been doing this as long as I have using this classic mode, I'm kind of fighting myself to switch over to the new user interface. And last on here, I do point out that there are some limitations with JavaScript plugins on it. If you write JavaScript and have just a field like written in there, it's not going to find it because it's not really related in the right way. But if you want to find workflows, or if it's in a pre-image or something like that, you can do that from here. Last, since I have been mentioning plugins, just pointing out, you can see where your plugins are registered by going to the SDK message processing step section, and it'll give you all sorts of information. It won't give you the source code, but you can see, when's this thing going to fire? These ones are on associate, update, delete, create, plenty of options in there. This would be the actual primary table that it's running on. It's running on all, but if it was an account or contact, it would say account or contact in here. Then there's a little bit more information. Is it real-time or background? Is it turned on? Is it running post-operation, pre-operation, pre-validation, and in what order? Just to just an idea of kind of, hey, what's going on in my system that maybe I'm not aware of. Going to go through a few of the settings, ones I view as kind of key. First of all, if you don't know where the settings are, you can access this actual drop-down screen from Power Platform Admin Center. You just have to find the right section in it, and the name is kind of slipping my mind right now. I believe it's under like an additional resource sort of section with a flyout window. But for those of you that know how to use the classic mode, it's under your settings section. First one I want to point out is auditing. A lot of people use it, but they don't use it terribly well. You turn auditing on at the environment level, and then at the table level, and then at the column or field level. Obviously, the more you turn on, the more storage you're going to take up. So that's kind of what I mean. Like, don't overdo it. Once you are logging and you do have data consumption going, you can remove them 3 months, a quarter of a year at a time, just not the current quarter. And then you can enable your auditing for like a user level. So if I want to see if John Smith has been logging in and making changes, I can check that if I turn on the audit logging, or excuse me, the user login auditing. Again, it can be very costly to use storage, so you do want to be careful there. One for developers, plugin trace logs. If you're writing plugins and personally, I don't want to go and use the debugger if I don't have to. 99% of the time I will, but I'll try to throw in some kind of tracing, like custom tracing messages in there so I can see what's going on inside of my plugin without having to do a whole song and dance of setting up the debugger and whatnot. And then down here, you'd see some exception details. This is directly an error message, but it can be more user friendly if you're hitting different steps by custom logs. Like, hey, made it past step 1. I typed that in as a tracing error, or not an error, a message. It would show here. Some quick hits on security. If you are out there making security changes, my recommendation, make a copy of the security role. You'll see that recommendation a lot. Don't start from scratch because you're going to have to work through a lot of errors. Then kind of speaking of errors, I do want to point out the object type code. I did mention this a little bit earlier in the API slides when it would say like a number, delete, number, retrieve multiple, something like that. It gives you a number. You get a number, you have no idea what table it's going to be unless you have an amazing memory. So that is something that you can easily find when you're looking at entity metadata, which I'll touch on in a little bit. My last main point on security is just be careful. You don't want to go too overboard with like business units. If you have 50 employees and 40 business units, you're probably not doing something right. You'd really want to consider teams or, maybe creating additional security roles because it'll take up your system resources. That's kind of the bottom line there. Data management, point out just a couple things in here. Your duplicate detection jobs exist here. You can set those up in this section. You can also do bulk record deletion back here. Be careful with this. It's good to help clear up your storage, but you also need to be aware if you have any plugins or workflows or anything that run on delete, you might be setting them off in groups of thousands, and that could really make it a bad time to be in your system. So to be aware of that, hey, maybe turn off your jobs. That's probably your best bet. Do it after hours as well, because if you have a lot of data coming out, it's going to hurt your system resources and your users are going to be aware. Last one is import. You can find those pretty well throughout the product, but if you want to see logs of all the ones that have happened, you can look back here. System jobs, also back in the settings area. You can track your asynchronous jobs back here. Background workflows, background plugins, calculated fields. You can see those right here in the screenshots. it's a good place to kind of go and see what's happening. You can also see like, hey, these jobs are failing like in large groups, or there's a lot waiting for resources. That can really bog down your system. So it's a good place to look around every once in a while just to kind of see what's going on. I know a lot of this is kind of touching on keeping your system moving and working low on storage, but I think that's very important. Last one in my section on settings is processes. Some people would straight out consider them workflows, but it's workflows, it's actions, it's dialogues, which either are deprecated or are being deprecated, and your business process flows. It's just a nice area to be able to go and see all of them. Hey, my account table has 14 workflows running. Well, I can see them all in here without jumping around from solution to solution. You can find out if they're active. You can view kind of your process sessions on it. It's actually a tab in there. So just, again, another area that's nice to be aware of that, hey, maybe you just haven't noticed it before. Moving right along, quick mention on the web API. I'm pretty sure I only have one slide on this, aside from the transition slide. Personally, I use the web API a lot. It's going to be more beneficial for a developer or technical than an end user. But I like to kind of throw the API/data/version 9 point, whatever, if you're on a different version, adjust accordingly. And that site on top of my actual CRM URL or yours would result in something like this. So you kind of can see, hey, these are names I can and or should be using in my web API for my different tables. And you can actually get a little further in here by putting the slash, and then say you wanted accounts, type accounts. It'll show you a list of all your accounts. Mine looks pretty like this because I'm in Firefox. I'm sure there's extensions out there for Chrome or whatnot. But it's a nice tool to be aware of if you're trying to find field schema names. The image field type, that's a stretch to see it and what all it includes or looks like on a form or in a solution. So for example, I've used the web API URL to go into the background and see what the image field consists of so that I could actually display it on a portal, and so that the portal user could then upload a new image and it'll make that change for me in the background. Personal settings is another real quick one slide, because there's only 2 or 3 personal settings that I'd really call out. And this one may not even be as important with the development of model-driven apps. First one is the default pane. Back when it was, you'd see sales, service, marketing settings all in the same area. That was nice. Now that that's in the bottom left with the new user interface, you can default where you're going to land. It used to be you'd land on like a standard dashboard, and a lot of people didn't necessarily want that. Another one, if you really hate seeing only 50 records at a time, go ahead and change your records per page up to 250. Last one is the email tab. If you have your email set up and your inbox enabled, this is one where it's important to at least know what your settings say, because some of it's like, can send emails on my behalf. I don't know if you necessarily want that or if it's company policy, but you should at least know. And then there's some tracking information in there about your email tracking. So, to avoid any sort of errors, issues in what's being tracked into your CRM, definitely at least have an idea what's going on in there. Record migration, and this kind of covers 2 separate things, but similar things. Something I like to point out to people is if you're, say, going from a dev to a test organization, or maybe up to production, and if you're like staging anything with like a lookup, maybe it's a type of contact and you have 10 lookup types. Well, it can benefit you to hold on to your GUID, your unique ID, or that crazy thing in column A. It's hidden when you export from Excel. But if you export from Excel and move it over that way, you can hold on to your GUID. There are tools to do this. I thought Excel was just a really easy way to kind of demo it in a picture. Also, if there's only a couple of them, to me, it's quicker to just go into Excel, make it a CSV, and upload it. It can break your workflows. It runs a chance of breaking your views if you're just creating the same record over in the other environment. Last kind of point on this is an option set. So say you're using an option set and you have 50 options in it. That's going to be kind of a pain for somebody to scroll through and find the one they're looking for. So I do want to mention in that situation, consider a custom lookup. I'll use the states, the United States, for an example. If there's 50 states plus DC and any territories, you're going to have a lot of options in there. Maybe make a lookup for it and create a record for each of those. That way your users can just start typing state in, or, say California splits and becomes 2 states. You want to be aware, I don't want them to use that old option set anymore. So you can deactivate that and your data can stay in place. And then your users don't have it as an option, but you're not deleting it and losing it. So it's just good consideration to kind of have in mind if you're extending CRM. So my next section, I'm going to go over kind of how I might run through selecting what kind of customization I want to use. I'm going to kind of hit on 4 or 5 areas that I would call kind of major customizations, and I'm actually going to work from the bottom up. So hopefully you have an idea that business rules are out there. If not, conditionally show hide things, require them, unrequire fields. They've kind of evolved over the last, I want to say CRM 2013 was the first version they existed in. And they've evolved a lot. And they've slowly been replacing the need for JavaScript customizations. Unfortunately, that's not totally gone. So you still do need some development in that area occasionally. Just something to point out, always try to use your business rule first before you just go throw your hands up and have somebody write JavaScript, because that's going to be easier for you to maintain, and you never know when JavaScript is going to become deprecated, while the business rules are supported. The other 3 are Power Automate, Workflow, and Plugins. Power Automate, I'm sure I'll accidentally say the word flow. The renamed version is Power Automate. You're going to want to start there and see if that's a consideration, an option. Microsoft's going to suggest that one to you as well. My only hesitation is the API limits, because they've come more into play. It's early 2021. We started seeing people run into those issues towards the end of 2020. So I'm still kind of getting my feet wet with the API limits and kind of, excuse the pun, testing our limits. So attempt to see if Power Automate is your option first before you move to a workflow. Workflow would be the one you'd go to next. And then if you can't use a workflow, that's when you can turn to a plugin. Some just kind of guidelines around that. If you want it to be real time or as instant as possible, lean towards a workflow or a plugin. Power Automate is background, but one thing I do like about Power Automate is that you can schedule jobs. So I could schedule a run every single day because I do not like wait conditions inside of CE. And then one other thing. So Power Automate, you can loop through child records and you can go up and grab parent records. Love that about it. Workflow, you can't, out of the box, you can't loop through child records. That's when you'd have to use a plugin. So just kind of some rules around that to be aware of when you're picking your customization. And finally, my last section, I want to cover a handful of tools inside the XRMToolbox, because if you are a consultant, functional, technical, system admin for an end user, and you aren't using XRMToolbox, you're missing out. It's highly, highly, highly recommended by me. And I'm going to go through about 8 tools that I use the most. I talked earlier about auditing users logging in, there is a tool that makes it a lot easier to view. The out-of-the-box user interface for it isn't great inside of the product, but if you have this tool, you can actually see these a lot cleaner per user. So just a nice one to keep in mind. Another one is Fetch XML Builder, and you're going to see this person's name multiple times in my slide, and I believe he is also presenting at DynamicsCon 2021. I also believe he's a Microsoft MVP. So, I know to some people, they may not know what the MVP award is, but if I see that in your title, I'm going to have a whole lot more trust in what you're putting out into the community. So just kind of a side note there. But Fetch XML Builder, personally, I list my reasons when I use it. So you can kind of see in my screenshot on the bottom right, you can put your Fetch XML in here. You can either create it, or under this options section, there's actually somewhere you could paste it. So I tend to do that a lot, take it out of Advanced Find and then paste it in, get it here. And then I can just get my C#, which is going to be your plugins. If I use it in JavaScript, I can just grab it right there. I'm more likely to use the JavaScript version. I take that back. I'm more likely to use the C# version. And then if you're using Power Automate flows, right here, it'll pop up a nice little box for you, and you can click and copy and paste it right into your Power Automate. It's very nice. That extension for that, to me, has made life easier, because sometimes finding the field names that you need to use for, say, a lookup field, it becomes a hassle. So shout out, thank you very much, sir, for creating this tool. Another one, Metadata Browser, low usage in my opinion, but it's nice when I used to not know where to look to find the object type code, which I mentioned in security and also in monitoring API limits. So that's a good one to be aware of. Metadata Document Generator. This is good for any mapping exercises or maybe a data migration you're doing, because you can select your entities, your tables, and then export it to Excel, and you get a nice formatted version that has like your field names, what kind of field it is, it's a string, it's integer, or something like that, your descriptions of them, a lot of good stuff in there that just makes kind of mapping exercises a lot easier. Portal Code Editor is one I use a lot. For those of you that have edited the portal code, if you do it in the portal management model-driven app, you know that you have to refresh the page if you save, and that can become a headache. And then you may have a couple templates open, a couple forms open, and you're just bouncing back and forth. You have the Portal Code Editor tool open, you can pretty seamlessly make a change, go check it, make another change, go check it. You don't have to keep refreshing the page. Personally, it just makes me feel like my life's easier. This is another awesome tool. This is the Ribbon Workbench. I've used this my entire career with CRM, and I've had experiences where I've sent a question in, and Scott's emailed me back within like a day, and he's another amazing person in the CRM community when it comes to just putting things out there and help. This tool is for buttons. I know it's called Ribbon Workbench. I say button. You can kind of see in the image down there that you have, I picked the product entity. You have a list of what you can see on your home tab, your main tab, and if it's a subgrid. And you can hide buttons, show them conditionally. You can make a custom button and put JavaScript behind it. When you have to make button customizations, this is what you want to do, because using the other way to do it is not fun and not easy. I'll leave it at that, but this is definitely the tool to use for button changes. I believe I have two more. This one's JavaScript Validator, specifically if you are using the XRM.page API, which is either deprecated or going to be deprecated. Get through this now before you can't use it anymore and your JavaScript just starts breaking, you can download this tool as an add-on to the XRMToolbox, and it can scan all of your web resources and show you where things would quote unquote break. So like right down here, it'll tell you XRM page must be replaced. It even tells you what to replace it with. So it saves a lot of looking for a needle in a haystack, a lot of time saved there, and your upgrades, your changes will go a lot quicker when you use a tool like this. Last one I want to talk about, and I said you'd see multiple tools from this CRM MVP. Here's the other one. If you're using Advanced Find to make your changes, that's kind of rough to do them 250 at a time. I almost call it awful. If you utilize this tool, you can do these things a lot easier. You can set up a batch size and make your data updates en masse. So it's pretty handy when maybe you're adding a field and you need to populate data in all those fields. Well, this is going to be a lot easier on you than doing it 250 at a time. So with that, I made a nice slide of the planets. I don't know what planets they are, but that's what I call them. So I just want to wrap up and say thank you to DynamicsCon 2021 for allowing me to make my first presentation to the community. I was dreading it, and it was a lot easier and more fun than I had expected. So again, thank you, DynamicsCon 2021. Don't forget, if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and I will be on live to answer any of those that I can.
Hey everybody, how are you doing today? Hopefully it's great. Mike, thank you for your presentation today and kind of the beginner's class on figuring out how to be a CRM developer or configurer or system admin. As someone that broke into the industry very recently, I definitely appreciate your mentorship of me personally, and so classes like this are definitely much appreciated. Everyone, this is Mike Hastings, Blue Horseshoe. He is our solutions architect, kind of our go-to guy for CRM. My name is Jonathan Hoffman, and I'm going to be his moderator. I'm his understudy, if you will. And we're going to go ahead and hit that Q&A. I know we don't have many questions up there, so I definitely think that meant the session went well. So
just means I have to talk less since I
like
to just hide in the corner all the time.
Yeah. So
if you see anything fall out of my ears, my headphones don't want to stay.
Well, hopefully that's all that's falling out of your ears.
It'll be good for the blooper reel.
Yeah, exactly. So again, I appreciate everybody joining us. Just got a couple questions here I'm going to scroll to, Mike. First, I think before we get to those, let me ask, how did you end up breaking into CRM, and how did you end up, working your way through to being a solutions architect?
I've been doing CRM for 7 years, and I just kind of fell backwards into a associate consultant functional role, and really had no idea what I applied for, but took the job. I was a functional and really wasn't a fan of all the human interaction, so I kind of jumped ship and went to an end user for a while, and then came back as a technical, and now I'm doing jack of all trades for us, right? Master of none.
Yeah. Did you draw that picture in the background there behind you?
I did. No, my 7-year-old, and she would be very offended if I took it down for this.
All right. So, so the first question that I saw today in our stream was, can you download and modify plugins?
I know somebody said, hey, you can't do it through the UI, which is true. There is kind of like a hacky way to do it, but I'm hesitant to share it because it's kind of a bit questionable ethically. But if you Google it a little bit, there is a way to get a hold of your DLL and kind of crack it open. It does modify. It looks different than what you originally have, because I know somebody who lost their code before and had to do it. So yeah, kind of hesitant to have it on video of me saying, yeah, go do this. So I'm gonna I'll plead the fifth at this point.
Okay, so if you do have plugins and stuff like that you're editing, I would say where's the best place that you recommend to do those in? Do you use Notepad++ and write them? Do you use Visual Studio? What's your
a plugin? Visual Studio.
Okay.
I've honestly never tried to do it anywhere else.
All right. And then Robbie asked a couple questions about some audits, and I think Tony got most of them there, about how to delete them. There is you can delete the quarterly audit logs directly through the UI, of course. And did you mention previously that there was some kind of SDK that you could potentially key into if you had access to it as well as a developer?
So yeah, the only way I've ever done it is with like the quarter by quarter most recent log. I did see that there's you can like write a plugin for it. That's kind of what I saw, because I actually Googled it while the video was going on because I didn't want to listen to my own voice, and I saw that there was an SDK messaging step out there for it. But if there's an add-on like somebody had mentioned, I'd definitely look at that first, just to avoid having to write anything custom.
Okay. Our counterpart up in I think it's Minnesota or Wisconsin, Sarah Reinhardt says hello to us.
To
Sarah, yeah, well, to me, but yeah. Hey, I'm trying to share the love here. We worked with Sarah previously on actually my very first client as a CRM consultant back in 2017. So it's always nice to see some familiar faces. And Fraser asked, as a company that's just beginning to roll out CRM, what's the most important thing that they need to get right first?
I kind of want your opinion on this too, Jonathan. That's kind of tough. Get your design straight first, because I've seen what can happen with a bad implementation. Make sure if you're using a partner, I kind of hope you are if you're new to CRM, that you found the right one. I know that's kind of a loaded question or loaded answer, because it's not the easiest thing to find, because you can pretty easily probably be tricked into somebody who doesn't know what they're doing because they can speak well, which clearly I can't. But I definitely get design input. I mean, there's so much stuff out on Google as well that you can find like the best. Yeah, that's kind of a tough question to answer, because I don't have a couple hours to answer it. But Jonathan, what would you say?
I 100% agree with getting your design right. Have an action plan, and do all of your functional design first. I've been on implementations where the client suggested that we build as we go, which sometimes it works great. Sometimes you fall right into a groove and you're just moving, and you know exactly what you want, and so that works. But I've been on implementations where sometimes the solution that was suggested as kind of an off the top of your head idea looks good on paper, but if it's not vetted, you end up having to undo all the good work that you did to find another solution. A great example that you actually used inside of your session was using a lookup fields instead of using option sets. There's no undoing an option set selection. Once you pick it and once you add it to that list, if you delete it from that list, your data is gone forever unless you've got your data backed up. So using, having someone complete that design and make a good business decision on which one of those to use in that instance is definitely a rock solid decision. And then also making sure that your system configurations are set up well. So a good thing to do is check your security. Definitely go through your security needs. Are you going to need specific teams for your organization to access data? Do you need to separate your data into different business units, or can it all live under the same organizational kind of hierarchy? And is there specific data that you don't want other users to see? Using field level security or locking people out of specific record types, things like that. Especially with GDPR and securing client data or customer data, security is even more important than ever.
I don't know if you said this and it's not right at the beginning, but when you get to like user testing, please make your users test. If they don't like it, they're not going to use it, and then you're just going to think you wasted your money. Also, if that Mike Sedlock that commented is the Mike Sedlock I went to college with, please let me know, because that'd be pretty awesome.
So we had another question from Justin about the tricks to keeping online stewards small and avoiding buying more space. I'll let you answer first, and then if you don't hit on the trick that I know, then I'll chime in. Go ahead.
So a couple years ago, I used to look at like an article on Microsoft Docs that had like tips to keep storage low. So that's one thing you can go take a look at. Again, Google's your best friend when it comes to this stuff because there's so much community like shared information. Let me think. So keep your data clean. The data is probably the smallest of your worries at this point. Auditing logs can get away from you really quickly. So only audit as much as you need and when you need it. Like, if you're trying to audit to troubleshoot an error or something, turn it on, then turn it off when you're done so that things don't go crazy. Attachments, I think somebody even said it in the comments. Email, yeah, Allison said email attachments, absolutely. Those can go wild too. Any sort of document storage, like personally, I try to push people away from storing documents in CRM. Like, hey, go to SharePoint, do something else, because $40 a month for a gigabyte adds up really quickly. And I don't think you guys want to be paying those bills. I'm sure I'm missing something. Jonathan, did I hit on what you said or were thinking?
Yeah, the CDS data storage is very expensive for attachments. I mean, in general, just the data. So I agree with you 100%. Find another document management solution besides CRM or customer engagement. Use the SharePoint connector that's right out of the box. Takes 5 minutes to set up, and store your documents out there because you've got a nice clean UI to access those documents from inside of CD.
Oh, another one. Don't. So I've seen this before where somebody takes their production, copies it down, and then they have matching sizes. So consider not doing a full copy, if that's even an option anymore. It's been a while since I looked at full versus just your customizations. Also, if you're gonna do that, make sure you clean it up because again, same example, someone has like 5 organizations and they have hundreds of extra storage purchased, which, oh man, they're they're going to pay an arm and a leg in storage. So yeah, that's another one to add in there. Keep your sandbox organizations lean-ish. I mean, you need test data, but outside of that.
Robbie asked about the activity pointer base, which is using up a lot of storage. Is there a way using some of the dashboarding inside of the system to see what kinds of documents are taking up the most space, or what kind of, not documents, what kind of activities are taking up the most space?
So I know I showed that like entity level, hey, this is the table, it's taking up a lot of space, which doesn't answer the question, but I just want to point out I used to have to email Microsoft and ask them, hey, what tables are taking up the most space, and they'd email me back. Maybe they got tired of my emails, but I don't really have a great answer for that since there's so many activities. But Step Brothers reference, right? But I guess that's what Allison was responding to, which absolutely right. That's the first place I'd go look at the email attachments. So if you go to like notes, there's a field, I don't know exactly what it's called, but it's something like file size. You can put in like is greater than 0 or is greater than something, and it'll come back and show you. And really, like if you wanted to, and because I like Excel way too much, you could export that and just sum it up and convert it to gigabytes to say, hey, I have way too many attachments. I guess portal comments, if you're using a portal, can hold attachments as well. So another thing, but all the attachments applies to notes. So really, that's probably the first place to go look. Go look at your notes, maybe. Emails. I mean, we have a lot of emails in our system because we don't use our internal one, because we don't use tasks and appointments often, if at all. Faxes, no. Sorry, I have kids. That was a bad dad joke. Yeah, those are my answers.
All right. So Stacy asked, what happens if you do have a bad design? How do you recover from that?
Yeah, I'm looking at it at the same time. Any thoughts on what to do? Change partners? I'm not sure. Not the same Mike Sedlock. That's a shame, but oh well. Sorry. Any thoughts on what to do if you have a bad? Yeah. That's tough. I mean, if a partner is giving you the design, if they haven't implemented it yet, reject it. Don't sign off on it. If it's already implemented, that's really tough and hard to not answer on a case-by-case kind of situation. Jonathan, do you have any advice on that? You're more of a BA for us.
It's tough. So I think that the biggest thing to do is bounce your requirements, your gap fit analysis off of your design. If it checks all of your boxes, maybe it's not a bad design. Maybe it's just not best practices. There's always 20/20 hindsight on what we could have done differently, what we could have done better. And so it's hard to know. It's hard to really know what's a bad design in the moment. If it's clearly not a good fit for your organization, you'll see it immediately because you'll see that your requirements aren't being met. If you're checking all the boxes and it's getting the job done for you what you need, then maybe you can enhance it with a phase 2 of your implementation. Maybe start with a minimum viable product and then upgrade that later.
Yeah, and I saw the face of sympathy comment, and I'm sorry. It's tough to tell without more like a solid example. I've seen bad ones. We've done rescues. I've recommended to people that their systems are kind of not great and seen them not act on it. But Yeah.
Heidi mentioned, a good partner will make sure you're on board with the design. 100%. A good consulting organization, I guess is the way to put it, will have a sign off from your team that this is what you want to move forward with, and they should be reviewing that with you. They shouldn't just say, okay, this is what it's going to be, this is what we're doing. I think it's a struggle sometimes as far as finding a balance between pushing back on a client or on a customer and saying, hey, this is what you want, it's not a good idea. And then on the flip side of that, just being yes people, like Heidi mentioned. It's very, very tough. Hey, welcome back, Mike. Couldn't see you. It's always a delicate balance to tell the customer no. But as a customer, if you're getting an implementation and you don't like what you're seeing, 100% tell your consultants no.
I think Heidi gave a better answer than you or I did. So thank you. And Jonathan, I know we're running short on time, and I saw there's another question from Karen.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on classic Solution Explorer versus Powerapp? I've been fighting the new one, kicking and screaming, because I like the old one. I've found some gaps in my limited experience with the newer one, and then I've found some things that kind of counteract that. Jonathan, what do you think? Have you played around with the new one much?
I have not done much. I've only done what I've been required to do through some of the tools that are like, oh, well, you have to go and edit your sitemap through the Power Apps editor, things like that. It's smooth. It's nice. There's functionality that I don't like in it, like if you do have to edit your workflow, at least in my experience, it's taking forever to load those workflows. And so I personally prefer the classic because it's what I know and it's easy to use. There are some benefits to the new one. So I would say if use what you feel comfortable with until they don't let you use it anymore.
So we're basically out of time, Jonathan.
So no worries there.
I mean, you're more than welcome to ask us more questions. I think that's how the thing works on the side. I've heard that in other videos. Otherwise, just thanks DynamicsCon for letting us feel uncomfortable on screen.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys, ladies and gents, and we appreciate your time today. If you do have any questions or need to talk to someone about a rescue or something, we are Microsoft partners. I don't know if I can sell ourselves on this video or anything like that, but don't be afraid to reach out to different consulting organizations and ask them for a second look. So thanks for watching, everyone. Appreciate your time and enjoy the rest of the sessions.